All right. Welcome to the very first episode of Rednecks Building Cool and Possibly Dangerous Shit. So, I'll start off by saying I did not plan for any of this to happen. It all started out with having a wood stove that I had built previously and deciding to convert it to an oil burner, and then it all just escalated from there. So, this is the end result of fucking around with that. As you can see, it was not built from scrap materials. I originally built this stove on a pipeline project I was working on because the environmental crew needed somewhere to keep their geotextiles warm. So the original wood stove didn't have any of the heat exchanger tubes there where these headers run. They go through the stove on the inside. And so yeah, it was just a bare shell of a box. That was how they kept their sea can warm to keep their materials warm in the winter. So at the end of the project, they basically said, well, you built it, you can have it because we don't need it. So it's like, hell yeah. So yeah, this has been sitting in storage for about a year, and then it all started out with adding a burn pot to feed oil into so I could burn all my used oil. So I started out testing phases. I had built the first pot out of one of my rotors, and I was using that shop vac to power it, and I had some pretty wicked flame. And then I wanted to make the nozzle removable for cleaning, so I cut it all apart, added some more fittings that just caused too much turbulence in my air feed, and my flame just turned to shit. So then I rebuilt the third pot. Now the base of it is the bottom of my oxygen cylinder, so I cut 7 inches off the bottom, which creates a nice little recess in the bottom for the oil to pool. And then I built a new nozzle, so there's a bunch of 3/16 holes drilled all the way around on a 30-degree angle to make it swirl, and the oil feed line is threaded with a compression fitting so there's no leaks. It's all sealed up. And then I was testing all different sorts of fans to run it. So I started out with shop vac. It's way too fucking loud. So then I had this air mover laying around. So I tried that, and originally I had built this manifold for it to bring it down to a single 3-inch pipe to feed my tea at the back, because one side of it feeds the burn pot underneath the stove, comes up through the middle of the burn pot, and then the other portion feeds my heat exchangers, which cycles the air through this side right above like the hottest section of the pot out that side, and then around the back into that manifold, and then out the front, and blows all of that super heated charged air out the front into the shop. So once I got all of this shit done, which took me a number of days, which again, I did not plan to build these stainless headers. Originally, I looked at it, I was like, well, I could just build like some plate steel boxes and enclose it to direct the air. But once I looked at the layout of my hole spacing, I was like, well, that's kind of perfect to build a sweet set of headers. So that's what I did. And then I had some buddies come over to check it out prior to painting and whatever, just for a test fire, and I wanted to kind of show it off. And my buddy Randy's like, well, fuck, now you got to put a blower on it or something. He wanted me to build it out of tinfoil. I'm like, well, I've come this far. Not going to build it out of paper mache or whatever. So then I came up with this fucking thing, my blower scoop, which is fully functional because the butterflies are connected to my damper in the stovepipe. So when you open up the butterflies, it's opening up the damper. So it's a fully functional, typically that would be the intake. Mine is set up on the exhaust side. So whatever, it's kind of neat. I like playing with it. I just kind of stand here and fuck around because, well, I'm like a little kid. A little kid that can build cool shit. And then he also said, he's like, well, you're going to have to paint it Chevy orange. And I was like, yeah, I guess. But even with high temp header paint, this thing gets so hot, it just cooks it. And the top side, where I've now bolted this piece of aluminum down, was absolutely charred. So I covered it. I haven't actually ran it yet, which I will for this video. But the paint looked like shit, so I covered it up. Anyway, so then I kind of got more out of control. I could have just ran a drip feed, which a lot of guys do, but I decided to get a little more fancy. So I designed this whole holding tank, which is the rest of the oxygen bottle, upside down. I've got a shut-off valve so I can kill it. It's filtered to a way oversized oil pump. It's capable of 14 liters per minute, I believe. And I only need, I'm trying to gear this thing down to about 1 liter per hour. So what I've found with my controllers, I've got a variable speed rheostat, which feeds the pump. So I've got it at about 35% power, and then that feeds my timer. And I've worked out the timer only has to come on for 1 second every minute, which gives it approximately like 30 milliliters per second every minute. So whatever that works out to per hour. I don't know. I'm not a mathematician. I could figure it out just off the top of my head. Anyway, and then I've got a rheostat which is hooked up to a foot pedal as if it's a throttle going to my blower. So I can like, it's not variable, it's kind of on or off, but it will, I mean, I can technically rev up my stove, which is kind of hilarious. And I haven't even actually tried it yet. I've just been running it straight off the rheostat to the fan, so I don't have to stand there and push on the pedal. Yeah. So getting back to the fan, I'm kind of all over the place. That was my original. That fan, because of this design, that squirrel cage back feeds on itself. It just doesn't have the push to get past this reduction. So then I cut that end off and made a dual into a dual 3-inch. So one was gonna feed the burn pot, the other was going to feed the heat exchanger. That also, because of the flat face, was creating too much restriction. And so then I moved to my third design, which is just way more flowy, into a 4-inch or a 4.5-inch. And then that's reduced down to 3.5 and then down to 3, which goes into my T. And then the burn pot goes down to 2, heat exchanger stays at 3, and that seems to be enough to not make the fan push back on itself, and is enough to power both the pot and the heat exchangers. So yeah, and then I got to wiring. So I mean, it already looks like an engine, so I was like, well, I might as well run a bunch of fucking rocker panel switches. So I've got my main power, which this one will feed power to accessory 1, which switches on my speed control for the pump, and then it's jumpered. How did I do that? That goes from the rheostat into the timer, so that when the timer turns on, it is only flowing the variable sped rate of the speed control on the pump. So yeah, there's quite a bit of wiring going on. I've got a 12 volt converter, so it just plugs into the wall. Everything in here is 12 volt power. That took me a little bit of messing around. Like, the whole thing obviously has taken me a while to complete. I bet I've got 120 hours into the whole build. Yeah, the stainless headers took me quite a while because I haven't done much TIG in many years, but it all came out well. So anyway, if I turn on the second switch, my timer comes on. So as you could hear and see, it powered up for 1 second. Now it counts down for 60 seconds, and then it'll come on again for 1 second, feeding oil to the pot. And if I want to do like a quick pre-fill, I can just crank my rheostat up, turn that off, and then that'll really kind of, I guess it helps if I turn on my valve. And I bought this sight glass hoping that I could watch the oil pour through it. No, it didn't work because it's too low for my P-trap, and the reason for that is to keep all of the oil and smoke from back burning up, and it'll create a lot of smoke. So you got to have that to basically kill any air in the line. And yeah, so if this was up higher so that it had enough time for it to drain out of it, it would work. But I can see, I mean, I guess if it were ever empty or not flowing, I guess I could tell, but kind of a waste of time. A lot of guys just use an open T on their drip feeds, but because mine is pressurized at the pump, it would fucking spray out of there everywhere. So couldn't do that. So yeah, if I run that a couple of times, it should spray a little bit. And you don't need a lot to start it. Like, that's probably plenty. One time I overfilled it and my first set of holes are only about 1 inch up, and it was coming out of the back of the air feed, and I was like, oh shit. But that was probably like, I probably put a liter in it. So now I only do, I don't know, a couple hundred or 150 mils before I start it. So that's probably a reasonable amount. And I just, we've got maybe 100 mil of gasoline. Diesel works better, but I don't have any with me right now, so I've used gas a number of times. And there is my torch. So yeah. Kaboom. So basically, you gotta let the oil heat up a bit before you can turn on the fan. And I should probably open my damper so that it can breathe. Would be smart. I haven't, like, I just finished running my pipe through the door because it's a temporary setup. I'll be moving the stove to my other property when I build my new shop. But I wanted to run it because I got tired of buying pellets, and I've spent so much time on it that it would just be nice to test her out. So I think what I'll do, I mean, I can try this foot pedal. I've never tried the foot pedal to see if it'll even actually work. And it's kind of short. Yeah. let the oil get warm for 10 seconds and then fucking turn on the fan. Away you go. Get my speed control back down. And then once it's running, I can start my timer. And that's pretty much how she works. I can't really stand here and hold this pedal, but it was kind of just for shits and giggles because, well, I could rev up my stove. I just thought it'd be kind of funny to sit here and play with it. I could turn that up. Give her another shot. I can play with a pedal if I want, or I can just plug the fan in and it'll just run full time. Hang on. And I usually only run it when I'm at 80, keeps it quiet. Still kind of like, I'm still in testing phase. It's definitely a little smoky right now. More. And once again, go on good now. Still eventually going to get a different blower. I did have that thing outside because it's so fucking loud. And I did try this leaf blower, which actually makes the best flame with the most power. But it's so loud, it's just completely unusable. So we'll probably send that back, and then I'll get a bouncy castle blower is what a lot of guys are using with pretty good success. Just clean this thing up a little. We're down. Like I say, I have not perfected the burn yet, and this is my first time running it with the flue on it. Yeah, there she goes. Yeah, if I get too much oil in the pot, it'll choke it down and start to smoke. And it could also be there's definitely a bit of smoke coming out of there. Let me see. Let it get a little hotter first. See if it cleans up. Oh yeah. Well, that's no good. Now it's out. Bitch. Which is kind of sketchy, because if the pot's hot enough when it goes out and then you expose air to it and lift the top rotor, she can flash up pretty good. So let's see if that happens. Thinking because my rotor had a bunch of ice on it, that could have been part of the issue. Or I've just got too much oil in there. Hard to say. I probably need more gas. Well, I'll fuck around with it and get her right ripping, and then I'll restart the video. Yeah, I think I actually didn't have enough oil in it. And it was just choking itself out. Well, that's how it's just supposed to burn. Just cycled the pump a few times. Get her filled right up. kind of went a whole different route on this one. Like I say, it was not planned. It just turned into way over the top, way too much time spent on it. But what else am I gonna do? Fucking have another beer. Cheers. Too many times it'll overfill the pot and then it'll start to smoke. Like right around 100. Keeps her going pretty good. One more shot. Still a bit. I'm still not the biggest fan of that air mover. With that leaf blower, it was so clean, like there was zero smoke. And realistically, that could just be steam because, well, it's minus 20 Celsius outside. And the heat coming out of the pipe is probably fucking 400 degrees, so it may not be smoke. I mean, it's pretty clean, considering that's just all waste diesel oil. Could still be cleaner. I'm gonna try a different fan. Ooh. That's my build. One day when I build my new shop, it will hopefully do what I want it to do. Got this stovepipe from a friend of mine. His dad had it out in the backyard for who knows how long, buried in the snow, and it's full of ice and water, so it's all dripping off. Boiling it. I mean, run this fire for a few hours, it should be enough to dry it out, maybe. But you can see now, because it had way too much oil in it. basically like infinitely controllable on my pump feed, so I've only had 2 or 3 fires in it, so I'll get her dialed. Realistically, I don't need flames shooting out of it to keep it red hot. That's well over 1200 degrees. Temp gun. So, and this thing maxes out at 555C as soon as I touch the pot. It's maxed. So on the bottom there's 554. You touch the pot, I can't even measure how hot it is. Aluminum on top, 200 in the heat exchanger, 300 degrees, so that's all just blowing straight hot air out of there. So that heat exchanger sets in. It hasn't even heated up yet. All I know is red hot is fucking hot enough.